My name is Rizwana Kadardina. I'm a teacher with the York Region District School Board. I've been teaching for about 16 years and I think I've been quite lucky. I was able to keep my job. My work was not affected in terms of employment by COVID. However, we did start working from home and work hours seem to have intensified because we seem to be working a lot more, as with many other folks who are working from home as well. Home and work life are blending together in ways that they didn't blend together pre-COVID. I think there were pre-existing inequities between women and men that have been intensified and exacerbated by COVID. So we know that levels of anxiety have been higher in women generally, and those seem to have intensified with COVID. I think that the workload of childcare has been taken up largely by women, so especially with children learning from home a lot of the times with virtual schooling, that workload is taken up by women, and so there's an intensified stress, or is taken up more often by women, and so there's an intensified stress level, right? That is attached to not childcare and also home care. When it comes to caring for parents perhaps that are not well or making sure that they are not exposed to COVID, a lot of that labor falls to women more so than it does to men. I think, in my opinion, social support is immensely important, right? It's important for women to know that there is a network of support available to them, whether that is through family, through friends, through work relationships, and also organizations, right, that can provide support. Physical health care is important. Physical health impacts mental health, right? And being taken care of and knowing that you have a place to go, that you have somebody who is watching out for you and can give you advice and guidance, and knowing that you're not alone has a huge impact on one's sense of being cared for. Women who, maybe who have young children and like myself are working from home, but because we're in lockdown or we've been, in an isolated state for so long, are experiencing the feeling of never being alone, right? And we know that time alone is really important to recharge, right? There are women who have lost their jobs or are struggling with employment, struggling with access to financial resources. And then for women who are in positions where they're experiencing domestic violence, intimate partner violence, or family violence, not being able to get the kind of support that they would otherwise be able to access is extremely problematic, right? And so we know, and the Canadian government has pointed this out too, that this has become a very visible reality of living in COVID times, is that women who are experiencing violence or abuse and are in a position where they either can't access support that would allow them to leave those dangerous situations, or are having to make a choice between being in a space where they might be protected from COVID, but are not protected from the people in their household. It's an untenable choice, right? Sometimes it can be helpful to get some outside support if you need it, especially if we have to remember that mental health impacts the person who's experiencing it and also those around them, right? Because the way it's expressed and felt can impact everyone else in the space as well. And the folks who are sort of being impacted need to know that it's also okay for them to get support. If there are challenges with having open, honest, kind and caring communication, then it's okay to ask for some support, to get some support with that dialogue. We're not perfect, and we don't have opportunities to practice what to do when the crisis happens. And so when a crisis does happen, if a crisis does happen, it's okay to get help from the folks who have the training and the expertise on how to guide us through that. And we're really fortunate that we live in a time where those resources are now available and more accessible than they have been in the past. I think that the more we talk about our own experiences, the easier it becomes for others to know that it's okay to do those things. And in light of that, I will share that I had quite a difficult challenge a few years ago where I needed some significant mental health support. And I make a point now of talking about that because I know that my speaking about my experience gives other people permission. We still, I think, to a large degree, treat mental health as something that is secret and not to be talked about, and as though there's something wrong with you if you are experiencing something difficult, you're having a mental health challenge. And the reality is we need to normalize that, and we normalize things by talking about them, right? Name it so you can claim it. And so the more we are courageous enough to share our experiences, the more we can normalize those for others, and the easier it becomes to find and talk about resources. The mental health professional that I was seeing, I gave out her card and her contact information to so many people after that, because once I shared my story, they shared theirs and they needed the support, and I had the resource now, right? And that is how we build, we build those networks and we build those supports and we provide access to each other, and that's how we break down the taboo, because, we are all human and we are all at times going to need help. And the reality is, if I got pneumonia or if I had a heart issue, I would go see a doctor, right? And if I saw you were struggling with your breath, for example, or you looked pale or weak, I would say to you, hey, have you seen your doctor, right? Similarly, we need to do that around mental health, right? If I can tell you that, listen, I went through a rough time, I got some help, and this is the person who helped me, is that something that would be useful for you, right? Maybe it wouldn't, and that's okay, right? But it might be. And if it is, it's okay to take it up, and it becomes okay for other people to take it up when they know that a friend has been through, has gone down that already, right? Has gone down that path already. I think that preventative care is as important as responsive care. And so, as much as we can, it's important for us to, as women and as people, to take care of ourselves to the best of our ability, so that we are not in positions where we are needing responsive care, if that is avoidable, and also simultaneously know that it is okay if you are in that situation where you need the responsive care. I think also it's really important for us to recognize that the structural and systemic realities in which we live have differential impacts, and so we need differential care, right? Women who are marginalized because of their race, their culture, their faith identity, etc., experience different mental health challenges, and the weight of the challenges they experience is different. And until those are resolved, we cannot place the burden for being okay on individual people. We need to not hold that as an individual responsibility. We need to hold that as a communal responsibility to relieve those pressures, right? I think the other thing that I would speak to is that it's perhaps one of the I don't want to say good things, but one of the things, more positive things that has come out of COVID has been a recognition of the importance of mental health and well-being. We see that in the media a lot. There's a lot more openness in speaking to it. There's been a lot more funding provided for programming and supports, and for culturally relevant programming and supports. And so, if we can make use of those, if we can access those, then that's great. Ansaar Foundation has a triage program that supports folks as well. They can call in and work with someone with expertise in the field. It's important, right, for us to continue to be open about these needs. And I think it's also important for us to realize that even once everybody has been vaccinated, mental health issues aren't going to go away, right? How we experience them might change, But the reality of having them, of needing to maintain our well-being and knowing that at different times different people are going to experience mental health challenges, that's not going to disappear, right? And so I'm really hopeful that the supports that are being put in place now will remain in place long after COVID.